I'm halfway through a novel that is 700 pages long, that has been written in dense detail, and probably that's why it took 20 years to write that. There are pages upon pages in the book describing the recipe of a kebab, slow mornings spent on a veranda, and the family cook being sent to the market even before the family members have decided what to eat for lunch. The plot meanders, the plot wanders, and I'm not really sure where this book is going, and yet, for some strange reason, I cannot help but return to the book. Now that's Kiran Desai doing something that I did not fully understand before I stopped to question what was she doing? Why am I reading a plot that is wandering, meandering, that is almost meaningless to me? And even after reading 300 plus pages, I do not really know where this story is headed to. So, what is she actually doing underneath the story? And what does it mean for the story that I am writing? Because I am writing a thriller based in Banaras, and I am someone who's never been to Banaras. Yet, there is a lemon tree in a courtyard in a stone and wooden house in Banaras, which I seem to know more than my own house in Bangalore sometimes. And today in this video, we'll explore how thrillers can also imbibe world building without the book turning into a bloated mass of thousands of pages. At the center of the loneliness of Sonia and Sunny, there are two young Indians who navigate life, relationships, love, and growing up in the 90s and early 2000s in India and America. But on a deeper level, this is not really about the relationship of two people. It is about families, cities, their histories, and generations rendered in such detail, in such dense, deliberate detailing that you cannot help but increasingly believe in that world with every page that you read and simply cannot resist falling in love with it. And here's the paradox that I keep returning to. Every writing guide I read prior to writing my first novel kept saying the same thing. Plot drives story and pace keeps readers. Every scene must earn its place. Don't write 20 pages describing the recipe of a kebab. Don't linger, don't deter, don't wander, get to the point. Backstory, if it must be included, must only be delivered in digestible pockets from time to time and not given in one massive chunk. But Desai breaks all of those rules repeatedly and unapologetically. This only means that one of the two things is true. Either the rules are wrong or Desai is someone who's transcended the rules. And I think there's a second one. And even as a writer of really concise thrillers, I think it's important to understand what Desai is doing that enables her to really transcend those well set, well proven rules and create her own world in these books that makes her readers fall in love with. A reader does not experience a world only through its major events. They do it even through the textures, through the detailing, through the dense, sometimes 20 pages long passages of the kebab. Because the kebab recipe isn't really padding, it's texture. It is telling you exactly what kind of family she's writing about, what they value, what they hold dearest, how their days are organized. Now the plot could be entirely different, and yet those small details that the kebab recipe treatment offers you could remain entirely the same because they are not serving the plot. They are standalone conveyors of texture, of information, and of believable world building that does more than just info dump. In fact, they're building the very foundation upon which this plot stands, even though it is in a very small and sometimes ignored way. That world isn't the backdrop to the story. That world is what makes the story feel real, and a reader who truly lives in that foundation will follow you through 700 pages, even though they make a video after reading only 300 pages, and even especially when the plot wanders. But for me personally, here's the problem. I'm not writing literary fiction. I'm writing thrillers. My readers have a certain kind of expectation. They expect plot, they expect pace, mystery, speed, and twists and turns. So if I spend 3 pages describing the morning routine of the Kaushal family in Banaras, I'm not really doing them justice. So the question therefore is not so much as to whether we should build the world. Of course, definitely we should build the world, but we should build it efficiently, and achieving that efficiency requires a discipline that Desai probably doesn't need. Because in a thriller, every detail has to really earn its place. And not once, but twice. In literary fiction, a small detail can do one job. Pure detail, pure texture, pure world building. But in a thriller, a detail has to do two jobs. One is pure texture, pure information, pure world building. The second is the detail must advance the plot. And let me show you what I mean with a small example. Now, a cracked wall in the house in Banaras is pure detailing, pure texture. A crack in the wall is a sign of how old the house is, or the state of its repair, or the lack of love and care that the house deserved but has not been given. And that's one job. It's good in a literary fiction piece or a book, but not good enough for a thriller. In a thriller, that crack can be texture, can be the passage of time. It could also be a clue. The crack wasn't there just this morning. So where did the crack come from, and what does it mean? Does it plant a doubt in the mind of the reader that you can probably use, 10 pages later and have a gotcha moment, have a haha moment? Yes. So every little detail in a thriller has to earn its place, not once but twice. Let me show you what that means with the help of a small example drawn from my book. Now, as I said, I've never been to Banaras. I first encountered Banaras in film in one of the early films of Feluda made by Satyajit Ray. I think it was Joy Baba Felunath. And you can actually tell that Ray is in love with Banaras just because of how his directorial eye, really depicts Banaras without any ornamentation. How the light falls in a particular time of the day, how the people, the crowd feel, how the sounds of the bells in the temples of Banaras feel, how the roar of the Ganga feels. Little things that you cannot, write thousands of words and even do justice to describe. But Ray captures really accurately with his camera. And I think that was my first brush with Banaras on film, and I fell in love with it. So when I started writing my first book and I was looking for a place, for a city to place the family house of the Kaushals, Banaras was an apt choice, not just because of how artistically beautiful and aesthetic this is, the whole mysterious vibe of the city, the whole spiritual vibe of the city, and yet within this spiritual city, there is something so sinister happening, there is something so sinister unfolding, there's a lot of family history being buried, and therefore Banaras felt like the perfect choice. And yet there was a problem that I personally have not visited Banaras once. Maybe I'm a bad traveler, but yeah, life simply hasn't given me that opportunity yet. So I did not base the parts of the story that unfold in Banaras in literal locations in Banaras. But I dreamt of one house that I knew in complete detail, one house made out of wood and stone, one house that has a huge courtyard and a two stories and veranda running through the first story, and the white color Toyota Innova that always keeps standing outside the boundary wall, almost as if it's witness of time. Of course, the lemon tree in the courtyard, that beautiful lemon tree, the beautiful fragrance it gives, and how everyone almost always forgets to trim that tree. The anchor of my world in Banaras isn't the Ganga, isn't the Ghats, isn't the temples. It is this one particular house in Banaras that I have come to know very well, so much so that it has been depicted in great detail in both of the books. The first one, Our Mother's Will, and the sequel, Our Father's Gift. This is the kind of house that was built to last generations by the people who intended to stay, who put a wall around themselves and a huge corridor at the center so that they could keep the real Banaras outside at a distance, private from the street and very communal inside. Boundary wall says, this is ours, that is yours, and the courtyard says we are together inside it. Sunlight comes across the courtyard in a certain way, strong in the morning, moving across the stone during the day, gone by late afternoon when the boundary wall casts long dark shadows. The veranda above on the first floor, though, catches the light in a completely different way. Now, if I were Kiran Desai, I would have probably spent more than one paragraph describing the Banaras house or the lemon tree in the courtyard. I would have probably explain in great detail how the texture of each leaf looks on the lemon tree as the leaf grows from an infant leaf to a baby leaf to a toddler leaf, adolescent leaf, and then an old leaf, and then its eventual death. She would have described how standing in front of that lemon tree felt, how the fragrance of the lemon mixed with the fragrance of Banaras. Again, I do not have that luxury, but I can still have the principle. I can still build that one detail thoroughly. I can still know it thoroughly, and I can still provide details about it from time to time in between the plot, and yet do it efficiently and not spend hundreds of pages on it. And I want to mention something that I did not plan on doing deliberately, but the house is something that is there in the first book, Our Mother's Will. It is there in the final book of this series, Our Father's Gift, and this was built by the parents, the Kaushal parents, and probably for a house for them to live in, for them to give it to their children as inheritance. Now, both the books also speak about inheritance, also speak about what parents leave for their children, about karma compounding across time, across generations. And yet, the house is the one thing that doesn't get to choose. It just holds everything. It holds the people, the choices they made, and the consequences of those very choices. The lemon tree and their fragrance was there before the father's empire, and they are there even now that the father is no longer there, and they will be there even when the story has ended. And that continuity in a story about what gets endured and what gets consumed is not just a small detail. The usual facts about a place that come in handy when you're writing about it, basically the area, the terrain, the weather, the geography, the people, Those are few things that you can really easily research, Google, or ask AI. But what's really more difficult, in fact, to understand or grasp, and therefore to convey in your writing, is the vibe of that place. Now, in that regard, I got a little lucky because I fell in love with Banaras by seeing Satyajit Ray's depiction of it in one of his films, as I said in the beginning. And his visual grammar, the visual grammar of Banaras, was imbibed in me, and that's what actually drew me to Banaras in the first place. Now, I do not mean it to be an exotic, touristification of a city that is holy in so many ways, but I mean it as, a perspective from the eyes of a director who has found his place, who has found the city to place his muse in. Now, that visual grammar of Ray is there now in my writing of Banaras, about Banaras, whether I intend it or not. Old photographs give me surfaces, the color of stone at different ages, the way a veranda looks in morning light, in afternoon light, and then in the fading light of a day that is almost but done. What wood over decades in a particular climate looks like. Photographs tell you what time really does to a place, to wood, to stone, and to a house that is built just like the Kaushal house made of wood and stone. Accounts written by people who have grown up in Banaras give me the interior life of the city, and I have friends who are from the place and cannot stop talking about it, and rightfully so. And those kind of praise and those kind of description really gives you a lot about the interior life, the interiority actually of a place, and especially of a place that has such a rich history and spiritual heritage. It is interiority not for interiority's sake, but because it is what it is. It is, how the light wakes up the city, how the Ganges flows during the monsoon and how the Ganges flows during the summer, how the temple bells are a constant BGM to the city's soundscape. Now, those are things that I have never experienced. I've seen it in film. I have heard it in the stories of people who have narrated their accounts to me. But I guess that'll have to do. Whether that alone is enough to do a good job of describing a place, you are the reader, you are the judge. And Kiran Desai, reading her book slowly and halfway through, is giving me something that is harder to name. Permission to slow down inside my story, inside my own world. Not for 700 pages, but for long enough. Desai wrote this book over 20 years. She, of course, did not rush it into existence. She let it accumulate over time, over the years, over the decades, and she let life happen. Now, I don't have 20 years, neither do I have her patience, neither do I share her genre. But what I do have instead is, in word and spirit, I have her principle, that is to take one thing, one element about a place and to know it thoroughly, know it intimately. And it is not important enough only for me to know it, but it is also important that the characters know it, whether the courtyard, the house, the lemon trees, and that single element, it contains almost everything else. And the goal is to know it so completely that even the reader starts to absorb, even without noticing, even without feeling the weight of detailing. And the question that I want to leave you with today is, what is the physical world of your story? What is the physical anchor of the world in which your story is based? Not the whole world, just name one thing. It could be a house, a street, a room, a dog, a tree. The thing which, if you described completely and honestly to the greatest possible detail, would tell a reader everything that they needed to know about the world that you're writing and the characters that live in that story. And if you already know what that anchor is, you know more than enough to get started and even continue on for, a lot many chapters. And if you don't, that's not a problem. You can always get started by asking, what is that special anchor? And the work is really worth doing even before writing a single more word or a single more scene. I am Shubh Das Gupta. I'm currently writing my second novel, Our Father's Gift. And remember, the house has lemon trees. I'll see you in the next video very soon.